Hello, I am Joanna Rajendran, and one of the biggest honors of my life is my 26-year friendship with the world's oldest yoga teacher. She certified me personally to teach yoga and mindfulness and mindset and vision work. And sitting at her feet, because she was recognized by the Guinness Book of Records as the world's oldest yoga teacher. She was considered by Deepak Chopra to be her yoga teacher, but she also took on new challenges well into her 80s, achieved major fame and success in her 90s. And I had the blessing of being able to learn from and sit with and to teach with Tao, to the point where she and I even had the fantastic experience of being in Tony Robbins' backyard together. We taught yoga there. I was honored to lead the breath walk and meditation to his Platinum's Lions group. And since starting with her, I've been certified to be a coach and a teacher in my own right. And I feel like it's my biggest way of repaying her is to help spread her messages and her wisdom forward, to keep that flame lit and to share with this and future generations how it's really possible to create a life by design, how you want to live it, as opposed to responding to what life presents to you. So this has naturally evolved into a coaching platform as I've done this in workshop-based and event-based groups for so long, and with individual coaching. I've now combined all of my favorite workshops into one cohesive course where you specifically have the opportunity to think, what does my dream life look like? What does it feel like? What does it taste like? Who am I with? How do I feel? Getting crystal clear on that, and then taking the small action steps together that result in the major shifts. And to that end, I recently worked with a client who was challenged with the dissolution of her marriage. And she said, whether I decide to stay in this relationship or I leave, the biggest gift I've gotten from my time working with Joanna is the absolute certainty that I'm okay either way. And another client who was younger, I met her at a retreat. She had already written off the possibility of romantic love and happiness for herself at a really young age. And after 3 sessions together, she started getting really clear on what she had to give, what she was open to receive. And in the year since, she is now married with a baby, traveling the world and working from her phone. And lastly, I helped another friend who is a fantastic coach, but had subconsciously put a cap on her own success. We started working on her vision of seeing herself in front of the audiences, on the stages, with the people that she had looked up to forever. And it took about 6 months from her visions to go from vision board fodder to real life, everyday action. So it is an honor and a thrill. Each transformation is so magical. None are too small. All of them are worthwhile, and all of them make me feel tremendous gratitude that I get to be a small cog in these huge, massive shifts.
Awesome. Well done, well done, well done. Short and sweet to the point. So again, as I'm giving Joanna feedback, feel free to write some of your testimonials in the chat box. And again, Jeffy, make sure you tag them all. And I think someone taught me this, where if you go to the right-hand side, there's 3 dots. You can, I think, save the chats. But Jeffy, just make sure you have that for Joanna. You can send the email to Joanna, and so she'll have all these testimonials. So Joanna, as I've said to you before, so the feedback I'm going to give to you is twofold. One is on your communication ability, and the other one is on your sales ability, because again, this is a business program. We want to help you make money so you can make a bigger difference. So just on the speaking side, and even though you've heard this before, Joanna, it's important that you always anchor in what you're really good at to remind yourself, because who always tells you how great you are? Maybe you have a lot of people right there, but I'm going to tell you how great you are as a speaker. But
I have also my mom. That's my person, Christopher.
Yeah, which is
Anyone
great.
need to borrow my mom? She is really adoring, and she lends herself out.
Yeah, Robin and I are online. So you really do want to have people that support you. But I'm also saying this to Joanna so that all of you can hear, oh, okay, I do hear that in Joanna and I want to be like her, or I already have that in Joanna, so therefore I can work on other things. So one of the simplest things is she doesn't use any fillers, uhs and ums. That's a big no-no. Even politicians, presidents, they all do it. But Joanna is really smooth with her talk, super enthusiastic, very passionate. That's great. So she has a very, very, very strong foundation of communicating well. You don't have to be the greatest communicator to be a paid speaker, but in Joanna's case, she has a great foundation of being enthusiastic, very believable, very confident, and she just has a nice, real feel and style to her voice. So again, Joanna, your tonality, your words you use, and your body language is great. So let's move on to the actual presentation. So I'll talk about the content of the presentation, the flow of the presentation, and lastly, does it convince me that I want to work with you? So you start off great, which is, again, lead with the whole celebrity thing, Tao, world's oldest thing. So in a person's mind, you can't assume that they're listening to you. Of course, I hope they all do, but we're all like in our own worlds. That's why if you say a few things in the beginning, I hear Tony Robbins or Deepak Chopra or worlds, I'm already, okay, it's feeding me, okay? Which is great, you're anchoring. Then that point, you want to just pivot. It's not, again, I mentioned this before, and it takes time, right? Because you've been for 26 years. It's not about her anymore. She's a story you're sharing, which is great, but it's all about you, what you've learned and what you can teach other people. So you want to immediately pivot to, though it sounds humbling where it's like, yeah, I was at her feet, maybe in the beginning, but to be able to co-lead with her, you want to anchor in the people's mind that you're an authority in your own rights. And I'm so blessed to have coached for 10 years and impacted tens of thousands, and even it might even be more, frankly, right? I mean, how many people do you think you have impacted, taught in the last 20 plus years? Because even if you were there assisting her, whether it was a 5-minute breath work, it doesn't matter. You objectively help these people. So would you say it's 10,000, 100,000, or even millions?
I would probably say tens of thousands.
Okay, perfect. So again, listen to what I'm thin slicing for Joanna. She has this awesome celebrity story, but now let's throw in some more depth to that and layers where it's when she says, first, oh, this is who she was. That's what I learned from. But I've been so grateful for over 10 years as my own mindset coach, or even with her, it's just like we've impacted tens of thousands of people. And today I'm going to share with you 3 specific stories. So now you're saying 10,000 people, but I want to share 3 stories. And the other thing I want to mention is you do a good job of asking questions. So what is your amazing life? You can say questions. Now, mind you, it is 5 minutes, right? And you all want to be ready to pitch, whether you have 5 minutes, 1 minute, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, half hour. It doesn't really matter what time you have. You always find out how much time do you have. So you reverse engineer that. And if you know you only have 5 minutes, then you do what Joanna did. And what I encourage you to do is it's all about emotion. Marketing is all emotion. This is why Nike has Kobe Bryant or Serena Williams. This is why Coca-Cola, even though Coca-Cola is the worst alcohol, we're not alcohol, that's a different worst thing. Coca-Cola is all about sugar, but they have this open happiness. There's this cute polar bear. It's all emotions. So remember, we're marketers too. So Joanna, you have a great job of marketing yourself, but now it's about, well, what are your dreams, your audience? And this woman I had, she was divorced, she was broken. And if she's open to it, you can use her name. If not, just say, I'll call her Michelle. But the more details, she was in this happy marriage with this man of her dreams. She was married for 20 years. She had this beautiful 6-year-old kid named like Michael. You know, you play up the story, and then one day she felt like she had a dagger stabbed in her back. It's very dramatic, but you are the savior. So you share this more dramatic as possible story, and then she had me, right? But it's very dramatic because essentially the viewer, the audience, the listener, your fans, your followers want to see you in themselves and your client. That's the whole point of this selling part. They want. That's why you have to stress these client stories, because they need to see you in your story. And that's why it's so important. It's all about them. You're sharing your story, but it's really, you're the vision that they want to be. And then you share your client for that's their vision for themselves. Does that make sense?
Totally. And I have a question, because at first I thought, ooh, I just saw an opportunity for growth and something I missed, but I'm curious what your thoughts are. So, you know how I said Christopher, I thank you for reminding me to talk about the money, because I could forget to talk about the money, just like I could forget to mention the name of my book when I'm interviewed on a podcast.
And that's a great book, by the way. I want to see if anyone was listening to our past conversations with Joanna. Anyone remember what Joanna's book title is?
My Guru on Heels.
Oh, Colton, you are so close. You get total credit, even though. Yes, it's My Guru Wears Heels. Yeah. And it is a great title. And I have to forget that false humility of forgetting to say the title of my own book. And it's something I've been working on since I was interviewed on a podcast 2 weeks ago. And she said, your only rule when you introduce yourself is there is no humble introductions. You need to say all of your things. And it was a great reminder and a great practice for me. I said it before and I will say it again. Christopher, you are worth your value just for doing the math of the programs for us. So there are things that I really do have an excitement about the transformation, about the work itself. And to that end, that doesn't mean that I should be a poor professional businesswoman and forget the payment part and the actual money and logistics of it. So in a 5-minute pitch like this, do you want to get them excited about the value of the course by mentioning what it is, but what they actually get it for? Or do you want to get them so excited that they're DMing you for that privately? So
in a 5-minute context, really, you don't have to even mention price. It's like, for those who are interested, come talk to me. I'll be happy to talk more, Okay. If it's in a larger context, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, perhaps at least 20 minutes. But if it's these smaller ones, really, if they're not interested in you, they're not going to buy from you anyway. If they are, they will. So for sure, it's more about emotion. You never want to sell them too early, because otherwise you haven't built that rapport. All of us are human beings. All of us want to be taught, not talked to. And again, just reminding you, Joanna, and all of you know this by now, I am not going to give you false praise. So all of you know that, okay? So when I give you praise, it's anchored on substance, not on, oh yeah, you're amazing. No, I'll give you praise when you deserve it, but I'll also give you that feedback. So in your case, Joanna, again, I highly encourage you to really take one of your stories of your clients and pull it out, the flesh, the dramatic. So for instance, Dragana, and this is, again, you want low bar, high bar, somewhere in the middle about clients. Dragana, she was so afraid she wouldn't even do a Facebook Live. So I sat next to Dragana, and on her first Facebook Live, she had 2,600 views and over 100 comments. Again, stressing, this woman, a year in, went on to speak in front of 200 people in Dallas. Within 2 years, she was in a global conference in Europe, and she's easily cleared over 6 figures. So notice how thin slicing, it's like 20 seconds. And all of you, by the way, have to have these stories. You can't be like, oh yeah, and I have a client, her name is Dragana. Like, you have to, it's like drinking water. And if you have those things down, Dragana started the program 5 years ago. She's still an awesome person. And I still talk about the story. So you want to have these anchor stories where it works. And I use her because some people are afraid of speaking. Some people don't know if they're confident. In Dragana's case, I sat next to her, and I have a picture of that. That's why pictures are so important. So when you speak next week, Joanna, make sure your mom, your husband, your kids, whoever it might be, if you have the money, I would hire a photographer. But even if you don't, the phones we have now is more than enough. So for you, Joanna, make sure you actually have a picture of you on the left-hand side with the whole audience. That's super important. You want to have close-up shots of you, but it's all about how impressive does that photo look. If you look at my Instagram, you'll know what I mean. Or even the photo behind me, right? Like when you get hired, you can't ask a lot for the photographers because you have to be very careful with professionalism because you're there as a speaker. So one of the pictures was professional, but the picture I used was a guy that saw me speak 3 years prior who took a picture on his iPhone. So all of you ideally want to have 2 or 3 people that's taking photos of you because you never know which one. And even if you have a professional photographer, you never know. So Joanna, make sure you have a checklist. You're there to make money from clients, obviously, testimonials, any videos or photos. You want to just literally have a checklist. And whoever's with you, they know, don't talk to me because you're there in client mode, because you have to have that militancy, because all of you, anytime you speak, I don't care if it's a podcast, a webinar, a virtual summit, in person, the single most important time for you to pitch is when you get off the stage. because that's when they're excited. If you've done your job right, that's when they're motivated. That's when they're inspired by your message. Because once you lose that moment, you might have lost them forever, because you have to immediately get to them there, have that script that I talked to Joanna about, and you have the highest probability. So Joanna, we'll do a call before next week because I want to make sure you're ready next week. So to finish off my comments, your term, what your client said, absolutely certainty, that could be your potential program name or retreat name. It's like freaking cool. It could be the AC event, but it's like absolute certainty. That's like super powerful. So again, if you had a coaching program called the absolute certainty program, and that's a client that told you how she felt, that's beautiful. So you might want to consider that, whether that's your high ticket item, your private coaching item, your done, whatever that might be. That just sounded really, really good, because absolute certainty, who doesn't want that?
It was cool last night. I did an individual coaching session with a woman who's been a healer and a coach for 30 years. Based on Christopher's coaching, I tried to steer her toward the group workshop that I'm doing. And she said, I've been doing groups for 30 years. I need individual coaching right now. I'll pay you a premium for a package of 3. I just want to work with you just on my relationships. And I thought, she's kind of thrown the gauntlet down, like, okay, I've done everything. What do you got? And that was the feeling. It was so great, because at the end of it, it was this subtle tweak, a little shift in what she could do in the next week before we speak again. And you heard the click where she said, wow, okay, I got it. I'm going to do that. Thank you. And it was a really enjoyable call, because in the beginning, I felt there were all of these barriers to entry. You know, she had been there, done that, tried everything. What's going to sound new to her? And
yeah, but you know what you say during that time, Joanna? You say, have you coached Tony Robbins, a $5 billion empire? She's going to say no. Have you worked with not just a 1 world record holder, Guinness holder, a 2 record holder? And she's going to say no. But again, these are those things where it's like, it takes a lot of finesse and a lot of chutzpah. She's going to say no. She's like, well, that's what I bring to you.
Yes.
And then you pause. But remember, all of you have value. Anytime you do private coaching, you bump up those rates a lot. The group coaching is much more scalable. And even with me, and this is an actual case scenario, I think 4 years ago, there was a young man, very young, he's 16, 17 years, he's from the Middle East, and he does e-commerce. And you know, I've met people in the Middle East, I've worked with some of them, e-commerce. So I didn't really think very highly of this young man, but I'm like, all right, he wants me to private coach him. So I said, what did your clients pay you? Because again, remember, don't say your number. Open it up. So he's like, 2,000. All right, great. You pay me $2,000 an hour and I'll coach you. So he ended up paying me about 15 grand, of course, maybe a month or two, for a rate that I just made up from the fly, only because, again, salesmanship, know your value. My issue is I'm like, I should be getting paid 100 grand a minimum for a keynote. I'm not there yet because I have to build my brand globally, but I'm just saying, all of you, make sure you know your value. Anytime anyone asks for your help, you want to be that untouchable, where it's like, I don't need to work with you. I don't do a lot of private coaching. You ideally want to move them to group coaching, but if they want private coaching, you don't want to do 1. And if they say, I want to do 3 lessons, like, then you say, Joanna, no, we only do 1 month minimum, because I'm committed to help you. So again, if they say 1, you say, no, I don't do that. And if they say no, then fine, that's their loss, not yours. But it's all about owning your worth and owning your value. But now it's about the skill set of saying that. Because again, what is she going to say if you say, well, have you worked with Tony Robbins?
And the best was, I had told Christopher that I had one other client, the one with the divorce, that didn't want to switch to the group coaching method. So he said, okay, well, that's fine. But from now on, your individual coaching rates will be double what you charged her. So when I spoke with this woman, I was shifting her intentionally toward the group, and I told her that new double rate. So what she offered me, expressing she was in a time of financial need, can we do a bundle of 3 for this amount? It was still more than I was getting from my original client, because she didn't realize her offer is already an increase for me, because Christopher just had me double it.
Yeah. And again, you don't know what they're going to pay you until you ask, but it's all about how you frame it. And again, even though they say they don't want group coaching, let's say right now, this is group coaching, but it's like 9 people. So it's almost like private coaching, right? And don't worry, we're getting to you next. So it's also for them, every single person in business has to be good at sales and communicating. So you might have to frame it as like, well, what is your goal? And if our goal is to help people, well, when you're on this group call, you can help our members. Again, bringing back to the community. So Joanna, again, overall, great job. Just definitely work on fleshing out that story to bring up some more of the emotions. And then at the very end, more the call to action, whether that's like DM me or if it's in person. If this interests you, definitely come up to me and talk to me afterwards. It's that call to action. You have to have the call to action. Otherwise, how can they pay you if you don't ask them to? So Joanna, great job.
Thank you. And thank you for the notes. I appreciate it.